I love stories. I love Zen stories. I have a book called 101 Zen Stories, and I think I've read it about 101 times, possibly twice that. And there's one story in it that I think is quite relevant. And in this story, there's a farmer. And he lives in a small town, kind of like the small town I grew up in Iowa, only in China, because this is a Zen story. And in that, he loses his horse. And if you lived in a small town, you know what happens. All the neighbors come by to tell him what bad luck he has. Oh man, you lost a horse, bad luck. And the farmer says, maybe. The next day, the horse returns and brings with it 3 wild horses. And all the neighbors rush over and go, good luck, wow, you've got 3 more horses. Farmer says, maybe. Next day, the son's trying to break the horse, right? Tame the horse. And it throws the son on the ground, and he breaks his hip, and he breaks his rib, and he breaks his arm, and he's all messed up. And all the neighbors come by to say, wow, the day those horses showed up, bad luck. The next day, the army comes by and takes all the young men to fight in the war. But not this young man, because he's all messed up. And so he lives to take care of the father in the old age. And I think the lesson from the story is, who knows? You know, when I went to work at LinkedIn, everybody's like, why are you going to LinkedIn? That's like a resume site. Like, nothing's ever come of that. Well, I believe they've taken care of my retirement for me. When I went to Zynga, everybody rushed to congratulate me. Good work, you're the hottest company in the Valley. They've had less to do with my retirement, but a lot to do with my education. And so, but the thing is, everybody's hired me to do something impossible, and I've always made it happen. Perhaps it's not always been the right thing. Braden and I can discuss that. But I have made things happen, and I've learned a lot of really valuable lessons. And one of those lessons is, don't get sued. So, with no further ado, once upon a time there was a startup, not resembling anybody I've worked with, and they really love tea. They wondered, how come tea sucks at nice restaurants? You go to a restaurant, and you get a macchiato, espresso, frappuccino, blah, 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 and then you get if you order tea, you get a little tea bag. So they're like, Hannah, who was first-generation Chinese-American, she's like, where's my Dragon Well? Where's my good tea? Jack, who was British, is like, Earl Grey is not a person, it's a tea. Can I have that, or Darjeeling? So they got together, they met at Stanford, and because they went to Stanford, and they made a lot of good connections, they were able to raise some money for their little startup to bring great tea to restaurants, to the people who loved it. And of course, what did they do? They got an office, and they hired a bunch of people, and they started buying computers, and they spent a bunch of the money. And they were really happy. They're like, whoa, we have a company. But they had a problem. All the tea people who desperately wanted to sell tea, they all signed up, right? But unfortunately, the restaurants are like, who are you, and why are you bothering me? And Yelp was just by. And if you have a marketplace, you need both sides of it. So they started getting really worried about this. And Hannah had an idea. Her mom used to own a restaurant. She thought, restaurant suppliers, these are the guys with the giant big trucks who bring the tea to everybody. And she started selling to them. She's like, wow, they're really willing to buy the tea. They're willing to take a chance on us. So she went to Jack and said, hey, restaurant suppliers. And he's like, aren't these the guy who bring canned tomatoes and all the crappy tea in packets? So he was really suspicious of this idea. This pivot did not match his vision, and he was upset. So he said, let's talk to Jim. Jim was their angel, the person who gave them their first money. And if you've worked at a startup, you know the angel is not just the guy who gives you money, but the guy who gives you advice. And Jim said, let me tell you a story. Jim used to work at Intel. And back in the day when he worked at Intel, Intel made memory as well as processing chips. They were really big on memory. But there was a problem. The Japanese had started making really good memory that was just as cheap. And they had this struggle, because everybody at Intel's like, we can't stop doing memory. That's who makes us us. But they knew they had to get out of it or the company was going to die. So Andy Grove, the CEO, tells a story, which is, I looked out the window at the Ferris wheel of the Great American Amusement Park. I've been in this office. You can still see the amusement park. I don't know if it helps inspiration or not, but there it is. And he said, if we got kicked out tomorrow and the board brought in a new CEO, what would he do? And Gordon Moore, Mr. Moore's Law, said he would get us out of memories. There wasn't even a question. And so Andy said, let's pretend. Let's pretend we're that new CEO, and let's get out of memories. And it worked for them, because look, some happy old white guys laughing. They laughing all the way to the bank. That's a good thing, right? Woo, we're out of memories, and we're in the rich house. So Jim says, what would it look like if we pretended we already decided? Instead of fighting back and forth, let's just work it out as a full scenario. And they talk through it, and they go, hey, maybe we'd hire a sales guy, somebody who knows how to do this, and maybe we'd change the website and hire a sales team. And after a while, they were like, this is not actually that scary. Maybe it's okay. Maybe we could check this out. This pivot might not be the end of the world. So they say restaurant suppliers, and they go out there. And then Jim says, but wait, there's more. You're about to make a big change, and you need to get everybody on this new path to the restaurant suppliers and off the old path. I suggest you use something called OKRs. Now, this actually came from Intel as well. They called it managing by objective, but they set up OKRs back there too. And what it is your O is your dream. It's your KR is your success criteria. And John Doerr, who also worked at Intel, brought it to Google, and you could ask Brandon about that. And Google did more than adopt it. They embraced it. OKRs is part of the way that Google became so amazingly strong and grew so fast and grew so hard. And part of the reason about that is an OKR doesn't tell you what to do, it just tells you where the end goal is. And in a company like Google, full of engineers, or cats, telling them how to do anything is pretty hard. So the O is qualitative. It's a shoot for the moon dream. I keep looking at Brandon going, am I making this up? I'm doing okay. So here's an objective for our kids. Establish epic value to Northern California restaurants as the best tea supplier. Like, I'm excited by this goal. The KR is quantitative. How do we know we met the objective? So, Jack gets excited. Okay, we're going to hire a sales guy. We're going to redo the website. We're going to place ads in restaurant supply magazines. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Those are tasks. Those are not results. Those are the things you're doing. But you could do all those and still not get a good result out of it. So he says instead, reorders at 85%. 20% of the reorders are self-serve. Revenue at 250K. You want flexibility in the how, not in the what. You know what you want to do, but what if it doesn't work one week to another? You want to be able to keep changing until you can make it happen. So we're going to take a second for a little mini exercise. And what I want you to do is I want you to think of something you'd like to see happen. Maybe it's building a new group, something that would take about 3 months to do, and then think, what would result if you did it? Like say, you want your design team to do a reorder flow that's mind-blowing, right? That just makes people fall right into sales. How would you know? And by the way, I would like you to do this because in a second we're going to share, so don't say anything too secrety about your company. But let's just take 2 minutes, not very long, just 2 minutes, and it could be a personal goal. How about go to Tahiti? How would you know you got to Tahiti? I'm in Tahiti. That's an easy one. Get healthy. How would you know? Weight, end of back pain. Think of something you'd like. We're going to take 2 minutes right now, and then we're going to share it. I wish I'd gotten the Jeopardy theme. Your objective is the dream. The KR is how you know you got there. You can have 1, 2, or 3 KRs. Okay, wrap it up. And now I'd like you to turn to your neighbor. If you're in a group of 3, like you guys, or a table of 5, you may have to have a couple of groups of 3. But turn to your neighbor and share your OKR. I know you didn't do your homework. I saw that. Share your OKR. And here's how you're going to evaluate it for each other. The objective, is it aspirational and qualitative? Does it make you leap out of bed in the morning? Do you die to make this happen? And then the KR, is it a result or a task? And is it measurable? And in general, will this really take 3 months to do? Is it hard? 50% confidence. So go ahead and turn to your neighbor, and this is where introduce yourself. Say, hi, my name is, and share your OKRs. Why don't you switch now and give the other person a chance? Give the other person a chance to share theirs. Good. Okay, start wrapping it up. Start wrapping it up. Hey, students. Okay, when I taught, in order to get the room to be quiet, we would do this, and I actually have some of my former students in the room. Steve knows what I'm talking about. Big hand. Okay, it is pretty hard to get these right. It takes a few revs, and it really helps to have a partner, so that's why I took the second to have you guys sort of quality check each other and ask each other these questions. So let's go back to our team, you know. They got excited about this OKR business. They're like, establish epic value to suppliers and delight existing customers and new order flow online. They got really going, right? And they brought it back to the team, and the team's like, sure, those are like KPIs, right? Like, yeah, sure, goal setting, that's awesome. We're really into that. And 3 months goes by, and guess what? The team didn't make any of those. They were excited, they were passionate, at least the founders were. You guys are excited and passionate as you start to feel your goals. Why did 3 months go by and they didn't hit any of them? You know, Jack and Hannah are ready to say, hey, this OKR is the latest crap jargon out of Silicon Valley. And then they get a call, and it's Jim. And Jim's like, I got someone I want you to meet. I know you've been looking for a CTO, so I'm going to introduce you to this guy. And they see him, and they're like, oh, he's kind of too cool for us. Hipster CTO from a hot startup. And then they see his t-shirt. They're like, oh, thank goodness, he's actually one of us. And they start talking about the struggle they're having with their OKRs, and it's actually Raphael, their new CTO, who's like, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong? What do you mean? We had a qualitative goal, and we had these quantitative, it should work out, right? You don't have focus. The problem is you don't have focus. You want to have one objective, not 3 objectives, not 5 objectives. You want to have one objective for the company for the quarter. It unites your efforts. You want only 3 key results, not 15 key results. You're all over the place. You have tons of things. The other thing is the OKRs are not everything you do. You don't have to include hire 3 new guys and all the little tasks. What you want to do is just set the goal. It's what you have to do. That's what an objective in KR is. It's the thing that you don't want to drop. If you've ever seen the classic Eisenhower box with important and urgent, there's a funny thing. The unimportant and urgent things get done before the important and not urgent things are. So what you do is you use an OKR to make those important and not urgent things suddenly very urgent. You commit to them through the 3 months. The other thing that's a key to making these work is cadence. So by cadence I mean on Mondays are for promises. Every Monday you're going to promise to your team. And if you've ever worked on Agile, you're familiar with this. We all do stand-up and we commit, right, together. This is the thing we're going to do this week. So every Monday you say, hey, we're going to look at this chart and we're going to agree. These are the 3 things right here that we're going to do. We're going to commit to closing the deal. We're going to have a new order flow spec. These are the things we're going to do in order to make these OKRs. I'm going to commit to it. I'm going to give a heads up. These are the next 4 weeks of things that are going to happen, right? Have you ever been in a situation where all of a sudden marketing is saying, we're going to launch tomorrow and we need a new brochure? And you're like, how, what, huh? So this is just a way of saying new things are coming up that's important for us to all do to meet our OKRs. So confidence, you want to look at this. Are we getting more confident or less confident? We start with a 5 out of 10 because we want our OKRs to be hard. But then as we start to go through it, we talk it through. It's like, why did it drop to 3? Does anybody have a connection at that company? Can anybody help us out? We're going to work as a team to try to hit our team OKRs. And the last one is the team health. While we're pushing so hard here, what do we want to protect? We don't want to push so hard to hit our OKRs we burn our team out and we break their hearts. We don't want to push so hard we write bad code. Perhaps we don't want to push so hard that we destroy our relationship with our existing customers. So this is a way in this corner we're going to protect what matters. And we're going to look at this every single week. We're going to open every Monday and say, we're hitting these OKRs, this is what we're doing, this is what's coming up, and this is what we're protecting while we push really hard. You got to have dedication to your goals and to your team. Then Fridays are for wins and wine or cake or beer, whatever you like, whatever makes you happy. We're going to get the whole team together. And again, if you've done Agile, you've probably done engineering demos. But why only engineering? Let's get design to put up whatever their cool stuff they've done. Let's get sales and biz dev to do their wins. Let's have a beer together. The reality is very often in a company, everybody looks at the other guy and goes, I don't know what that guy does. He's on the phone a lot and he's really loud. But if every Friday he gets up and says, I just closed this deal, or I kept those people from suing us, you start to appreciate each other. You start to feel like you're part of a team of winners. It's really wonderful. Everybody needs bragging time, everybody. It motivates you to have something to share. It makes you feel like you're part of something special. It shows that there's progress happening. It makes you feel like you're part of winners. So we go back to the team and they're like, oh, we suck. We didn't meet any of the goals. We said we're going to make the goals. And Hannah, our CEO, says, you didn't make your OKRs, but they stop. We're not doing the marketing right. It's not our fault. Excuses, excuses, excuses. They're so scared of failure because we're all scared of failure. We've been taught if we fail, we suck. But no. She says, hold on. Everybody fails the first time. And let me tell you, everybody fails the first time they do OKRs. They sandbag. They set such low goals that they hit all of them, and they're not really achieving it. Or they overestimate what they can do, and they don't make any of their OKRs, and then they hate themselves. Or, of course, they just forget to do them at all, which is what happened to our kids here. So he says, we're going to do it again. We're going to try again. It takes a couple cycles to get these right. But this time, we're only going to have 1 OKR per quarter. We're going to do weekly check-ins, and we're going to have our Friday celebrations. 3 months passes, and they made 2 of the 3 OKRs, which is a good number, actually. If you're really setting yourself hard goals, 2 out of 3 is pretty good. Metrics are growing. That's always exciting. And they got their Series A. woohoo. And perhaps they live happily ever after, maybe. But at least they didn't kill themselves. And that, for a startup, sometimes is all you can really hope for. At least you got out of your own goddamn way. So wait, there's just a tiny bit more. I left Zynga about 2 years ago. And when I left Zynga, every day I would take a Prilosec, and then I would wake up every 2 hours to take Tums. I was destroyed. My health was ruined. I knew I could no longer work in corporate America. But the thing is, when you leave corporate America, you end up spending a lot of time watching the Food Network channel. And I thought, perhaps I ought to do something, make a little money, but not ruin my health all over again. And I thought, I have a tool. I have a tool for this. So I set my own OKRs. My objective was be financially stable, preserve health while doing work I like. Well, what were my KRs? I thought I'd start with bold, if I'm only doing work I like. So 30K for my quarter seemed okay, doing work I'd do even if I wasn't paid. Have a manageable budget to predict expenses. Trust me, this is a stretch goal for me. And this was the big one. I had to really ask myself, how do I measure being healthy? And for me, it's my stomach and my back. Maybe for you, it's your shoulders, maybe it's headaches. Everybody's got their story. But there is data waiting there if you decide you want to measure it, including in your back. As well as that, I'd send a weekly status to my coach, and I would actually list, look at that, those are my OKRs. Those are confidence levels. They're going up and down. Every week, I reminded myself, don't take a full-time job that will kill you. It was an important thing. And you know what? I now live my happy dream life with my daughter, the pirate. So I think OKRs are a powerful tool no matter what your dreams are, and that's what I really want to share with you. I want to say thanks to my students who posed for these. I know you guys weren't the posers this time. They were paid in pizza, just like a real startup. And I'll take questions.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what questions do we have for the wonderful Ms. Wodtke here? How many of you are thinking about what kind of key results you'd be looking at?
If you could go, I know this is... Sorry, I think, by the way, thank you very much for this talk. I could actually listen to you for at least an hour easy. You should do this more if you're not doing it.
You like stories too.
Yes, stories are very powerful. That's where the learning is from. I have a quick question. I think I'm not exactly clear on what you mean by, the objective being qualitative. Can it not be quantitative at all?
So what's interesting about OKRs, a lot of people ask me, what's the difference between an OKR and a KPI? And there's a couple different things. I think KPIs tend to be a pulse, how is your company doing, while an OKR is what is your company doing. But I think the more powerful difference is that I have never met a designer or customer service person, or actually quite a few engineers who get excited and motivated by numbers. I know salespeople or CEOs who go, I'm so excited today to make my funnel go up 3%. But us designers, we tend to want to change the world. And so what I love about OKRs is the O is that aspirational dream. It's that the qualitative thing. Like, I'm going to create the most delightful experience for people filing taxes. Oof, okay, that's a stretch goal. But it's a dream. Okay, so then you get to ask yourself, how would I know? The KRs become quantitative. How do I take this word delightful and actually make it mean into something? So then you can say, well, how do we know it was delightful? We could use NPS. We could do a survey. We could look at retention. We could look at dropout. You can have really good conversations about what metrics would really tell you the truth. And what's really great about that is the metrics people are talking to the qualitative people. They're going back and forth. And you really become a company with one goal that's pointed in the same direction. And I think the power of the OKR is often in that conversation. Let's all agree on the word delightful. Let's all agree about what we're really trying to do here. Does that help? He wants a recorder. I'll have to repeat you otherwise.
I'm so sorry. No, it's perfectly fine. It's just that, within a quarter, my goals are not, if they're going to be the world-changing goals, are not going to be met. So what you're saying is effectively measurable going up is what we're talking about, right?
I
one
rarely
day
aim
part.
to go down.
Obviously.
Sometimes with my time, but otherwise,
Yes,
yeah.
indeed. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank
But
you.
but the other thing is, and I think another thing that will help it make it clear is, a company should have a mission. I believe Google's is still make the world's information universally findable and usable. And then you could ask yourself, in 3 months, what's a mission for 3 months of getting a little closer? So Abby Jones, I know, is working on Google Books, and she might say, bring the world's middle English texts into accessibility so that scholars can use it. And then she'd say, well, how would I know it was usable? How do I know it's and she could come up with KRs. And so each OKR is like a little car that the mission's pulling like a train. And I think that when you think of how to write a mission, it also thinks how to write an objective. And then the KR is how do you get there?
Excellent. I'm wondering if teams have a tendency of picking KRs that are a little too easy,
Yes.
or even worse, vanity-style metrics of how many likes we get.
Yeah, so that's why I like to start with the objective. The objective is, what are we really, really trying to do? What do we really hope? And then you can have a really good fight about it. But the rule of thumb with OKRs is if you make all 3 of them, and again, I'll pick on Braden to say nod vigorously, but if you've made all your KRs, you're probably not setting daring KRs, right? And if you make none of them, you're doing the opposite. You think you're capable of more than you're actually capable. So in a lot of ways, that check-in process at the end of the quarter helps you learn. The problem with vanity metrics is they rarely map neatly to objectives. It's funny, that's not the question I thought I would get, but I like it. It's a new one.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
This
you.
has been awesome.
Great. Thank you for your smart OKRs.